Thank you guys for your time today. So this is the three amigos of the demo today. So feel free to reach out to any of us. April, who is officially now at Microsoft. Woohoo, congrats again. Hugo at Point Alliance and myself at Catapult. We work together on this. So look forward to showing you what we got. What we're going to talk about today is an SVG Iconography Factory for list formatting. Now that sounds fancy pants, but what we want to show is that you can use SVGs directly within your list formatting. In fact, we may remember a few different demos that Chris had done flawlessly on how to utilize those SVGs through an application called Inkscape or another vector-based solution. So what are SVGs and why do they matter? They're scalable. They're 100% vector. So we think about icon fonts, the way we may implement those via CSS, but it's way better because it is more scalable and more performant, and we'll see why. So the question is it a file? Is it markup? Right, it can be both. We can access directly the SVG. Technically, an SVG file is a document, so we're able to access the properties of it. Specifically, what we need is the D path, which is what makes up an SVG. It's all mathematical, so think geometry. All those are little shapes based on mathematical calculations, and that's what you see in that D path in the SVG markup in the slide. Why SVGs in list formatting? So they're extremely performance friendly. When we think about utilizing icon fonts, you're stuck utilizing the collection of the fonts. So if you have a font that has 100 or more icons in it and you only want to use one, you're having to load that entire font, even if you only want one icon. So with an SVG, you're able to access the individual icon, making it more performant. Additionally, you have targeted scope. So where we might want to load icons using an icon font, typically that's going to come via an application customizer. We've seen that demoed in the past, but that's going to load globally. We're going to have to display it everywhere, even if the page or the list is not using it. So some of that code will get implemented into our page, whether we want it or not. With the SVG, put into our list formatting definition, it's specifically and highly targeted just to where that list formatting instance is being displayed, whether it be in a list or a list web part, which is awesome because it's almost like a custom web part. We're able to ensure the target of that individually. So we see what that markup looks like, and that makes sense to everybody, right? Totally readable, totally legible. We know what every little integer means and how it's going to work. No, it's very confusing, and it can be confusing. And so we wanted to make it easier. We had an idea together on how to make it easier for the community to be able to access icons, and that's where the SVG Factory comes in. Now, April is going to do the demo, so I'm going to hand it over to her, and then we're going to hand it off to Hugo to talk a little bit about the architecture. We're not going to get too deep into the actual code today because we don't have enough time, and we want to share that in depth in another demo. And we're also going to have it available as a sample soon. And a special shout out to David Ramalho, whose sample we're going to be using today. So April, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, David. All right, so to really showcase the power of the SVG Factory here, we wanted to start out with this example of a meet the team kind of list here. So, you know, we wanted to make this a little bit more fun. So obviously we want to have the employee name, their job title, email, and picture, and all that. But we want to know some fun details about this person, like where are they from, what's their home country, their favorite sport, if they're a Marvel or DC fan, favorite season, all of that type of information. So while we could just throw that information into a SharePoint list like we see here and just, you know, have it be like this, it's not the most eye-catching, right? So we wanted to apply some list formatting to this. So we actually did, like David said, I used David Ramalho's list formatting sample on the small contact card here. And so our first attempt here is this non-SVG view. So we used his example as is, just added some text lines to surface up that additional information. So, you know, I'm from the US, I'm a Marvel fan, I like football, and my favorite season is fall. So, you know, that this is fine. We can see the information, it's usable, but again, is this the most eye-catching sample that you've ever seen? Probably not. What can we do to make this better? So let's dive into our other view here, our SVG view of this. And hopefully you can see right out of the box, this is just way more appealing to the eye than the previous version we saw here. So we have these nice visual SVGs that show that information, that same information, but in a very more user-friendly visual way. So this is all done using SVGs. Now, if we go into the format here and kind of scroll down, you'll see all of those dpaths, if we scroll down a little bit here, for each of these that we're using. So for the LinkedIn icon, and if we keep going down a little bit, so here's the home country flag, and we're putting in those dpaths. Now, again, if you're an end user, not technically a developer, it can be pretty difficult to figure out what this right dpath is for your SVGs. So we wanted to make a way where, you know, end users or people that maybe just don't even have the time to mess with that can just find out, okay, I want to put in, you know, we'll notice that Marvel in DC is missing here. So I want to fill that information in. So if we scroll down here in the formatting definition a little bit, you'll see I have this, if it's Marvel or DC block. So in here, in this if statement is where I want to be able to put in that SVG dpath. So without having to, you know, format anything, I can just click here on my SVG Factory. And notice too, when I click on the SVG Factory, it's not messing with my format open there. That's still open. It's still usable. And here in the SVG Factory, we have it grouping enabled. So we have some teamwork and demo icons, and it's all searchable. So we can search for basketball here. But for my case, I want to use this Batman icon and the Captain America. So if the person likes DC, I want to use Batman. If they're a Marvel fan, I want to use Captain America here. So if I want to use this in my list formatting definition, all I have to do is click the icon that I want. You'll see that it's copied to my clipboard. So now I can just go back over here to my formatting definition. And right there is where I want to put, if this is DC, so I can just paste that in. So there's all of that big dpath information. And then if they're Marvel, I want to grab that Captain America one. So I can just go back to my SVG Factory and copy this Captain America here. And again, this window is persisting for my formatting, so I don't have to worry about losing that when I go back and forth to my SVG Factory. So we'll paste that in there. And now if I save this definition, there you go. Now we have the nicely formatted, there's the Captain America shield for all the Marvel fans and the Batman for all of the DC fans there. Just with a few simple clicks, I was able to utilize these SVGs in my list formatting and have a nice, great, visually appealing view formatting here applied. All right, and with that, I'm going to go back here for Hugo, and he's going to talk about the code behind in the solution architecture.
Awesome, thank you. So because we had 3 demos today and we had 3 presenters for our demo, we chose not to share too much of the code, but to talk more about the architecture. So the way we did this is we built it so that we would have a command set extension that would display that little icon. And the command set extension will call a library solution, which is our SVG Factory. And that's where all the icons, the dialog to display the icons and things like that comes from. Inside that component, there's 2 elements. One is the SVG Factory that I just talked about, but also another thing is an interface that we define, which is SVG icon library. It's really hard to say multiple times in a demo, but that's the name of the interface. And what that interface does is it says, you know, there's one method that you must implement. It is give me the list of all your icons. And then we have a bunch of other libraries. Again, they're SPFX libraries that we've created. For this demo, we prepared 2. One is the demo icons 1 and teamwork 1. But we absolutely built it with the idea that other people in the community can start adding their own libraries. So you want to have a holidays library, or you want to have a business library, or whatever. You can implement it any way you want, as long as it implements the SVG icon library interface. When the SVG Factory calls each library is responsible for getting all the SVGs. It brings that to the SVG Factory, and it repeats that for each library that we've got in this set. So why did we use a library? Why did we not just, you know, hard code a big giant command extension? It's because the command set gets loaded every time the list gets displayed. But we don't want to load all those icons and call all those libraries every single time. We only want to do that when users are indicating that they would like to format the list. And that's why we've decided to use the SPFX library. But when we architected this, we absolutely architected it with the vision that this is going to be more like a plugin framework, where eventually we can load multiple libraries behind the scene and eventually kind of extend that. And we'll talk about next steps in a minute. But before we do that, let's talk about what happens when you actually click on an icon. So when you click on an icon from the dialog, so if we move forward, we do the gratuitous animation here, and it loads the SVG from the icon. And that's the library, the iSVG icon library interface that's providing this. It returns the SVG. And then using the demo that Chris Kent demoed a while ago, we're actually using the same approach. We go get the path, the D path from the icon, and then what we do is we create on the screen temporarily, we create a hidden HTML input. So that should appear on the screen momentarily. There you go. And then what we do is we actually copy just insert the text of the D path into the input. Now, because it's a HTML input, it can behave like a regular control inside of a web page. So that means we can actually call the browser's clipboard function to copy this string into the clipboard. As soon as we do that, we destroy the temporary control, and now we have the D path in our clipboard. And that's really all there is. It's nothing fancy. And in fact, what we've done when we built this, if you think about it, is we used David Warner's sample on how to create libraries. We use Chris Kent's example on how to use the SVG D path, and we use one of the extension samples that I had built, which is to leverage the concept of popping up dialogues using the clipboard, as well as leveraging kind of April's skills in list formatting and things like that. So what we're going to do next. So this sample is something that we're going to be putting forward on the SPDev solution repo. We absolutely built it from the start with the idea that we would want other people to contribute to this and make it what they want. We definitely want to add more functionality in the future. Some things, for example, the ability, and I saw someone commented on that, so it's great to see that we're on the same wavelength. The ability to add a URL instead of an SVG, the ability to kind of insert your own SVG. Not just from a list of SVGs, and things like the ability to provide animated interactions and stuff like that. We absolutely want to grow this to be something that people want to use, not only just for SVG, but the idea of this plugin framework. I can definitely see some other solutions that I'm looking forward to build that will allow me to leverage this whole plugin framework and do something that can continually add more functionality by just adding more libraries to it. So probably the most important aspect of this whole demo for me is not just the solution. I mean, the solution is cool. It was fun working on it. But the cool thing here is we took, it was basically David, April, and I. So I'm working with two MVPs. Well, I guess one former MVP and one MVP. And we're all working from a different background, right? I wanted to learn about using libraries, and this is something that David is really good at. And I wanted to learn from April in terms of list formatting and things like that. We all wanted to learn something from each other. We saw an opportunity to get together, and we're all busy. We're all, speaking at conferences, and again, some of us are getting new jobs and stuff. But we made the time to get together and to put this together so we could learn from each other, and we built it with the idea other people would contribute. So please, if you have ideas and you have MVPs or people in the communities that you respect, and you want to learn from them, a lot of them, I can't speak for all of them, but a lot of us are always excited to help other people and excited to come up with new ideas and work with other people. So don't be afraid to ask other people to contribute. I'm hoping that we can see a lot more solutions like that where people are getting together to build new ideas. That's it for me. David, or April, did you have anything to add?
Perfectly put. Thanks, Hugo.
Thank you.